Good evening. The Kremlin has just crossed a threshold that changes everything about how we understand this conflict. Moscow is no longer speaking in diplomatic code, no longer issuing veiled warnings. Russia has formally and publicly declared that the United States is directly responsible for a devastating military strike on Russian forces, and it has promised a harsh response that will come swiftly. This is not another round of threats designed for domestic consumption. This is Moscow drawing a line and daring Washington to respond. What unfolds in the coming hours will determine whether we're witnessing the beginning of direct US Russia military confrontation. 3 days ago, a precision strike hit a Russian military complex deep inside occupied Luhansk. This wasn't a forward position or supply warehouse. This was a command facility coordinating Russia's entire eastern military operations, drone control, artillery networks, electronic warfare, communications infrastructure. The attack destroyed the facility almost completely. Satellite analysis confirms extensive structural damage. At least four high-ranking Russian officers were killed, including regional commanders whose loss creates immediate operational gaps in Moscow's chain of command. The weapons system used, ATACMS, Army Tactical Missile Systems. American-made, American-supplied long-range precision munitions requiring capabilities Ukraine doesn't possess independently. These missiles need satellite guidance. They need targeting intelligence from advanced reconnaissance platforms. They need operational coordination that only comes from close integration with Western military infrastructure. And that's exactly what Russia is now saying publicly. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov appeared on Russian state television with a carefully prepared high-stakes statement. The language he used was deliberate, specific, and eliminated any room for diplomatic ambiguity. The strike was not executed by Ukraine. It was executed by the United States using Ukraine as proxy. American satellites identified the target. American intelligence guided the missiles. American military coordination made the attack possible. Ukraine was merely the delivery mechanism. Washington is the aggressor. Then came the critical part that sent alarm bells ringing through every Western capital. Russia will not respond with diplomatic protests. We will respond with concrete military action. That response will be swift, proportional, and directed at those responsible. Russian state media immediately shifted tone. Anchors spoke about American war against Russia. Military analysts discussed potential targets for retaliation. Telegram channels circulated maps showing U.S. installations across the Middle East and Eastern Europe. This wasn't spontaneous reaction. This was coordinated messaging designed to prepare the Russian public and signal intent to Washington. The military moves confirmed Moscow isn't bluffing. Two 160 bombers, Russia's nuclear-capable platforms, took off from Engels Air Base. MiG-31 jets equipped with Kinzhal hypersonic missiles launched toward western zones. Naval forces elevated readiness. Most ominous, 3 Russian submarines departed ports and disabled transponders. They've disappeared from Western surveillance. These are preparations you'd expect if Russia is seriously considering retaliation against American assets. Let's understand why this strike triggered such extreme reaction. Russia has endured hundreds of Ukrainian attacks. This time is different. The difference isn't military damage, it's what the strike represents. For 2 years, the Kremlin maintained a narrative that Russia's military is invincible, its air defenses impenetrable, that Ukraine survives only on limited Western support. This strike demolished that narrative completely. It proved Ukrainian forces, equipped with American weapons and intelligence, can reach deep into Russian territory and destroy critical infrastructure with precision. It proved Russia's defenses cannot stop these attacks. It proved Moscow's military superiority claims are hollow. For Vladimir Putin, this isn't primarily military crisis, it's political. Putin's authority rests on projecting strength, a Russia that cannot be challenged. Every successful Ukrainian strike erodes that image. Every video of burning facilities, every satellite photo of destroyed centers, every dead officer, all of it undermines Putin's fundamental narrative. That's why the Kremlin chose escalation, not because it's militarily necessary, but politically essential. Putin cannot appear weak without risking his position. The United States responded predictably. The White House issued a statement within hours, brief, direct, uncompromising. The United States rejects Russia's baseless accusations. We provide Ukraine with defensive assistance consistent with international law. Russia's threats against American forces or interests will be met with overwhelming consequences. Overwhelming consequences, not measured, not proportional, overwhelming. American assets across Europe immediately repositioned. An Aegis destroyer moved into the eastern Mediterranean. B-52 bombers patrolled over Poland and Romania. F-35 squadrons in Germany went on alert. Everything visible, everything communicating. We are ready. We are not backing down. Diplomatic activity erupted behind the scenes. The Secretary of State initiated emergency calls with allies. NATO convened in Brussels. Back channels with Moscow were activated through intermediaries. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody in Washington acknowledges publicly. The boundaries defining this conflict no longer exist. The distinction between supporting Ukraine and directly participating has collapsed. The difference between proxy war and direct confrontation has been erased. Russia sees this clearly. Moscow understands defeating Ukraine militarily is impossible without addressing the source of Ukrainian capability, and that source is Washington. American weapons enable strikes. American satellites provide targeting. American intelligence identifies vulnerabilities. From Russia's perspective, these aren't Ukrainian attacks. They're American attacks using Ukrainian forces as delivery mechanisms. So the Kremlin made a calculated decision to reframe this conflict entirely. No longer Russia fighting Ukraine, now Russia confronting the United States with Ukraine as the battlefield. If that framing takes hold, everything changes. The constraints dissolve. The escalation ladder extends into territory we haven't seen since 1962. I've been warning about this for years. The West's strategy of providing increasingly sophisticated weapons without fully gaming out Russian responses was always going to reach this point. Russia, feeling cornered, was always going to redirect fury not at Ukraine, but at the power enabling Ukraine's success. What we're watching isn't miscalculation. It's the logical consequence of strategic choices made over 2 years, a consequence of prioritizing battlefield gains without considering escalation risks. Right now, both superpowers are locked in a dangerous staring contest. Russian forces signal readiness. American forces demonstrate capability. Every movement tracked, every communication analyzed. Diplomatic channels remain open, but barely. Back-channel communications are tense, bordering hostile. Russian representatives are more aggressive than ever. American officials remain firm. Ukraine has maintained its defiant posture. Zelensky hasn't made a public statement, but his office affirmed Ukraine's right to strike military targets in occupied territories. No apology, no concession. Every party is holding ground. Nobody is blinking. And that's when catastrophic miscalculation becomes most likely. When decisions are made under extreme pressure, with incomplete information, with forces on alert, and communication limited, the risk of triggering something irreversible increases exponentially. History offers warnings. The Cuban Missile Crisis, Able Archer in 1983, Syrian airstrikes that nearly put American and Russian pilots in direct combat. Each time, cooler heads prevailed. But history is not a guarantee. It's a cautionary tale. And tonight, that caution feels more urgent than it has in decades. Three critical realities emerge from this moment. First, we've entered a fundamentally new phase of this conflict. The United States is no longer just a supporter of Ukraine. Moscow has explicitly named America as a direct participant. Whether Washington accepts that characterization is irrelevant. What matters is that Russia now operates under that assumption, and that changes the entire strategic calculus. Second, deterrence operates in both directions simultaneously. American military power is designed to deter Russian aggression, but Russia's nuclear arsenal is designed to deter American intervention. When both sides are deterring each other at the same time, with both convinced they're acting defensively, the margin for error becomes razor thin. Third, what happens in the next 48 hours matters more than the previous 2 years combined. The decisions made in Washington, Moscow, and European capitals right now will determine whether this crisis escalates into something uncontrollable or whether diplomatic off ramps can still be found. We're watching history unfold in real time, not through retrospective analysis or archival research, but as events cascade moment by moment. The world is watching to see if America maintains its position or seeks de escalation, watching to see if Russia follows through on its threats or uses them as leverage for negotiation, watching to see if the international order established after the Cold War can still manage great power confrontation without catastrophic war. The submarines are silent, the bombers are in flight, the diplomats are working frantically, and the space for miscalculation is shrinking with every hour that passes. This is not the conclusion of the story. This is the moment when everything changes.